Yeah, my name is Mike Shoen. I wrote the book, The Cobra Ferrari Wars, 1963 through 1965, and it covers the FIA International GT car races of the period 1963 through 65, and a little bit before and after, but not much. And one of the cars that figures prominently in that competition is the 904 Porsche, which was in the international racing category was called a GT car, a GT2, whereas the Cobra and the Ferrari GTO were called GT3. They ran in the GT3 class, but the 904 Porsche ran against him in most of the competitions and was really a factor in deciding who was going to win what. So it's a neat car. Yeah, this car that I've got is a recreation car. It's a copy of the original 904 Porsches, which were also called Porsche GTS. I used to have an original 904. It was one of the team cars that had raced, amongst other places, at the Targa Florio and Le Mans. It was a 2-liter 4-cylinder car. The 904 Porsche was intended to use a 6-cylinder engine, the new 6-cylinder motor that they were making for what was then the new 911. And they were getting ready to produce the 911 in 1965, but they thought they were going to have the motor done in 1964, but they never did get that 6-cylinder 2-liter motor done. So in desperation, because they'd already started building the body chassis for the 904, they said, well, we'll use a motor that we already have that's been running in Porsche race cars, which was called the Carrera 2-liter motor, which was a 4-cylinder twin cam motor. And that produced about 195 horsepower, depending upon who you talk to. So that's what most 904s were built with, that 4-cylinder motor. That was in the 1964 season. After the 1965 season started, why then they started having some of these 6-cylinder motors around. They started putting those into the end of the production of the 904. And they even, believe it or not, put in an 8-cylinder motor in 1 or 2 cars. But they were all these 4-cylinder, 6 and 8-cylinder motors only had a total capacity of 2 liters, because Porsche did not want to run any of the cars up in the higher class, which was over 2 liters, GT cars. So that's sort of a very brief history of the part of the 904 Porsche. The 904 Porsche also was one of the first pure racing cars that used a fiberglass body. Porsche kept that up, using fiberglass bodies on the later racing only cars. That include the 906, 908, the 910, and the 917. A unique thing about this car was they used a ladder frame that had a deep box section on each side, and they bonded the fiberglass body to that ladder frame. So if you were a rally driver and drove in the snow and rain, and you got rust on the steel part of your chassis, to repair it, you might have to destroy a lot of your body. Well, this has a 3-liter motor. It's a 6-cylinder motor, which is a derivation, or just another development of the original 2-liter 6-cylinder motor that was intended for this. But this is 1972 specification from what they call an RS Porsche 911. So it's got a 3-liter motor, and then this thing has the S-cam in it, which is from the 911S, and it has higher compression than the 911S, and it also has a little bit of headwork. So it's making between 250 and 300 horsepower, somewhere in there. The position of this motor in the transaxle is exactly the same as the original 904 4-cylinder, except we have 2 more cylinders, one on each side, that's ahead of the 4-cylinder. So you can see how they had designed this car so you could fit a 6-cylinder motor in it, and actually it was big enough to fit that 8-cylinder in with 4 more cylinders ahead of it. And the transaxle here is somewhat different than the original 904 transaxle in that this is what they call a 915 transaxle from a Porsche RS. But the suspension is all identical. The frame is identical except for some of the detail of this, the tubing back here. Otherwise, the main frame on this thing is identical to the 904 Porsche, the original car. And an addition, and a good addition, is that they've added to this car, this recreation car, a roll bar, and you can see the backwards brace here, and then the rollover hoop is in here inside the roof. Now, if you go to a vintage race and watch a real original 904 Porsche run, you'll see that those owners have done the same thing. They've taken the original car and added the very same roll bar because they don't want to die in a crash of their car. So this is in common now with the original cars. There's a weakness in the car, and that is a shift linkage, because you've got pretty long distance from up here at the driver's hand all the way back here to this transaxle, and you get the shift, the shifting tube will flex if you don't have exactly the right bushings in the right place. So we're still don't have that exactly right. This can here, this aluminum box, is the dry sump oil reservoir. The engine takes in the air from this lattice work here, and it sucks it in through this fan here and brings it through this sheet metal tin and pushes the air over the cylinder head fins and cools the motor. Because it's an air-cooled motor, there's no water radiator. There is an oil cooler radiator in the nose, so when you look up at the front of the car and you see the little opening, inside there is an oil cooler. This car runs pretty cool even when you're running it hard on a track. It's a pretty good car. Yeah, there was a guy in England who put this car together. He had the job of repairing an original 904 Porsche that had been badly hit. And to repair it, he had to make part of one of the new side frame members. So he got the chassis blueprints somehow, and he repaired this original 904. And he thought, well, why don't I build 904s, because I've got the molds because of this car repaired, and I got the chassis blueprint. So this was about the 12th or 14th car that he had built in England. He calls himself Technic, T-E-C-H-N-I-C, I think. And he doesn't make many of them, but it's a pretty good car, and it's real close to the original. There are some detailed differences where he couldn't invest in the tooling to get some of the, there's a couple knobs and stuff that we replaced that really weren't as sturdy or as durable as we wanted. But otherwise, it's a real good car. And I think he used to call himself Martin and Walker, and then now he calls himself Technic. And he was a real straight guy to deal with. I had no problem. And he was very honest. And if I had to do it again and I was 15 years younger, I'd get another one and probably use it more. We're going to take this car and run it at what they call a no-fly zone roll race, which is a race down a half-mile straightaway on an airport, and with a rolling start, so we don't have to burn the tires in first. And we'll just use it sort of as a development run to see how fast it will go, to see what kind of problems. This thing, if we have no problems, it should certainly do 100, and I don't know, over 120 at least. You can never tell because you don't know what's going to happen. And you have to run the car fast to find out the weaknesses, and that's a nice place to do it.